She's a scheming woman. It's her first time meeting the prince. She deliberately wore a blue wreath, and dressed in a simple white dress. Like a butterfly attracted by the honey on the wreath, the prince indeed showed interest. The woman did not dare to be negligent. She quickly seized the opportunity. Little does she know that the seemingly sickly prince is actually a tough nut to crack. Historically, this 13th prince is notorious for his ruthlessness, but he intends to conquer this beast, making him his puppet, to assist him in ascending to the throne, and train him to become a tyrant. He wants to seek justice for the torment suffered over the past 400 years. He wants to take revenge on the entire royal family. In his previous life, he was born, but his mother died during childbirth. From then on, he was seen as the culprit who killed his mother. What should have been a happy family fell apart as a result. He always tried to get close to his family, but what he received in return was distance. In his memory, his father had never called him by his name. He didn't know what he had done wrong. Fortunately, he had a high level of skill in swordsmanship. He would eventually have the opportunity to meet the emperor. The emperor said he would help him forge a real sword. He thought he was finally being recognized. He hurriedly agreed with joy. He thought he would finally gain his family's approval, but did not know that forging a sword means turning him into a true sword. A large number of experimenters couldn't hold on. Only he survived. But his life essence was also changed. His body is gradually turning into steel. In the dark cellar, he finally understood what that true sword represented. In the end, he was no longer human, but transformed into a beautiful sword. His consciousness was sealed within the sword. The power contained in this sword delighted the emperor. From then on, the emperor's happiness was built upon his suffering. For 400 years, he protected the empire, becoming tainted by countless sins. He solidified the rule of the royal family throughout the ages, but no one cared about the torment he suffered. So he prayed every night. He wanted to personally punish the royal family that tortured him. So on that morning, he woke up in his own bed. The divine sergeant responded to him, granting him rebirth. In the year he turned 13, he quickly got up, and clumsily stumbled. The pain in his body told him that this was not a dream. After 400 years of torment, he finally regained his physical form. At this moment, he vowed to completely destroy the empire. So on his birthday, after completing the application to be a royal teacher, he set off to his mother's portrait, to offer the last white flower. This signified his complete farewell to the past. This path of revenge leading to the abyss is destined to have no return. Now that he has obtained the identity of a royal teacher, it's time to go find the prince. I've taken the first step towards revenge. I want to take revenge on the king. So when I first met the prince, I wore a blue floral crown. I also donned a white dress. I've heard that the prince's mother is a kind and elegant woman. The prince is very fond of his mother, so I figured the prince would be taken in by this. Your Highness, I am your teacher. Dylan's gaze was somewhat vacant, but the woman knew. He appeared harmless on the surface, but behind the scenes, he was ruthless. Yet the woman aimed to conquer this beast. She wanted him to become her husband, to help her destroy the empire. Thinking of him reaching out his hand, and actively left a question. Your Majesty, do you know why I became your teacher? He knows that to tame a boy who is not lacking in women, he must ensure he is not seen through. When he realizes he is no longer invincible, that will be unparalleled. But Dylan remained silent, only reaching out to shake hands. But at the moment his hand withdrew, he felt the woman brush his palm lightly. Then they sat down to drink tea, like a butterfly resting in the woman's hair. Of course, this was also the woman's little trick. To attract the butterfly, she had intentionally smeared honey on the wreath. Dylan was indeed intrigued. From now on, you be my teacher. The first step for a woman to succeed is moving back into this familiar yet strange palace. Every time he sits here, he can still hear those heart-wrenching cries. And these cries come from himself. He could never forget the torment he endured here for 400 years. Little did she know that on her first night in the palace, the woman encountered an assassin. With just a slight wave of her hand, the man fell to the ground, unable to rise. Even before dying, he couldn't believe it. He clearly said she was just a knight with a hollow reputation, not knowing that while she practiced her swordplay, his ancestors were still playing in the sand. On the first day in the palace, he was attacked. This indicates that other princes took action. After all, Dylan, who never vies for power, was suddenly captured. It's hard not to suspect his involvement in the competition for the throne. The assassin must have targeted Dylan as well. The woman was considering whether to help, but unexpectedly, cries of anguish echoed from the quiet corridor. It seems Dylan resolved it himself. He really is hiding his strength. In the week that followed, the two continued to meet for meals as usual, but neither mentioned the past. The prince still pretended to be useless, just like now. After practicing sword for 5 minutes, he was out of breath, and insisted on resting for an hour before continuing. He's clearly incredibly strong, but insists on pretending otherwise. This shows he has a strong sense of boundaries. So the woman directly squats down in front of Dylan, and after being away for 2 years, his father only just discovered he was missing. He was about to curse. Yet I can't remember my daughter's name. Thinking about it carefully, it's a bit strange. She used to be very clingy, always creating opportunities to meet, but I didn't want to pay attention to her. But starting 2 years ago, that girl who used to smile no longer has a smile. She began to become indifferent, walks with an inexplicable aura. Every day, he does just one thing. He silently wields his sword. Those servants who bullied him were directly fired by him. From then on, the servants dared not look at him. Once, they happened to meet. The daughter walked past him as if he were invisible and asked, "Why don't you say hello?" He didn't even lift his eyes. He said, "You are not worthy." Hearing this, the father became enraged. His wife died in childbirth because of him, yet he still doesn't follow the rules. This family does not welcome him. Little did they know, Zalais had already moved into the palace. At this moment, his goal is to tame the Prince Dylan before him. Revenge against those who humiliate him. Everyone says Dylan is quiet and upright, and even a bit naive. But only Zalais knows how treacherous and ruthless Dylan is. When he removes the assassin, clearly powerful to an outrageous degree, yet he pretends to be useless. The reborn Charles knows that this is probably the teaching of his mother, the 7th imperial concubine. The 7th imperial concubine shone brightly in her youth, which led to jealousy from the other concubines. In the end, she met a tragic fate. So the 7th imperial concubine taught him to act discreetly, and above all, to survive. This parting advice became Dylan's creed. This led him to not compete for the throne, and to constantly endure 10 years holding a sword, in the end assisting the 5th prince to ascend the throne, while secretly controlling everything from behind. So if this dying wish were to destroy the empire instead, how crazy would Dylan become? This is exactly Zalais's goal. Right now, as long as the imperial concubine has a miscarriage in autumn, at that time, Zalais can implement PUA, using Dylan's hand to destroy the empire. But before that, I can start with a little appetizer. That is to get Dylan's attention. I will directly squat in front of Dylan, and poke him, "Your Highness, are you planning to keep pretending?" At that moment, he sensed Dylan's strong wariness. But before Dylan could say anything, he directly got up and left. After all, the goal was achieved. During the theory class, a normal class would cover at most 5 pages. But he just wouldn't follow that. You read 50 pages first. We'll take it easy on the first day of studying. Then he didn't lift his head. He practiced magic. He knew this was a piece of cake for Dylan. Sure enough, an hour passed. "Teacher, I finished reading." The woman in front of him didn't seem surprised. His disguise was pierced by him. Dylan unexpectedly took to talk to the teacher. You seem to have not mentioned your family. Dallas still did not respond. As expected, Dylan began to secretly observe him. When the prince became curious about him, it meant the fish had taken the bait. People have no ambitions, only want to tame a prince, and take revenge on the emperor. But unexpectedly, the ninth prince ignores Dylan beside him, and openly stares at me. His eyes are full of frivolity, and he looks disgusted too, laughing loudly and saying, "Can someone in a pink robe be a knight teacher?" Charlize can tolerate all of this, but the ninth prince is going too far. You relied on Dylan to rise to power, right? After saying that, he patted aside, gesturing for him to come over, saying that mixing with him has more potential. That flippant attitude is really annoying. He looked at Dylan, and found that he had no expression. It seemed he could swallow any insult. Charlize was angry. For the 400 years before his rebirth, he had been trampled like an object by the royal family. It was the same now. He adjusted his mindset, smiling at each other. "Not only did you insult me, but you also insulted my students. So please duel with me." The ninth prince was stunned for half a second, and then contemptuously agreed. In his eyes, a woman is nothing more than a knight of reputation. Yumming is just a name. He agreed to the duel, but the opponent is brother Hong Mao. Charlize said nothing. His purpose in being reborn is just to quietly take revenge, but the other side keeps pressing him. Then he can only wear the pinkest dress, and wield the heaviest sword. It's the fiercest fight yet. The newcomer comes in with great momentum, but Charlize remains calm and collected. Yet as the attack approaches, she easily dodges it. "Is this your attack? It's really weak." The guard is frantic. Instantly, murderous intent arose, but the seemingly fierce attack was easily blocked by Charlize. Even within a brief second, she disarmed the guard. Charlize stopped playing games. That's all the man had. She then fiercely charged at the guard, couldn't withstand the incoming force. In just a moment, it was riddled with holes. In everyone's shock, the guard knelt down before Chair Eyes. The ninth prince is now left with fear. The woman on the field is like a monster. She trembled as she walked over. "I apologize for my rudeness to you." Then he ran away as if fleeing. Charlize became famous overnight. No one dared to call him a knight of honor. Instead, there was only admiration. Even Dylan's gaze changed. He slowly approached him, in a voice only the two of them could hear. "Teacher, why do you think living like this is meaningless?" This is Dylan's first question. "It's simply that women can catch my interest. Because I empathize with you. Because only I understand you." Dylan never doubted that he would become the best of the best. Even if no one knew his talent, he still strategized behind the scenes. Gradually, he grew tired of obtaining everything so easily. He was curious if being an ordinary person would be interesting. But after he actually tried it, he found it was nothing special. Gradually, he closed off his heart. He didn't allow any base emotions to intrude. "Am I right?" The woman's words struck Dylan's heart. "I know your secret, so you're wary of me. Because we're the same kind of people. That's why I understand you. So, won't you let down your guard? Let me try to break through." At that moment, Charlize finally broke through Dylan's psychological defenses. "My sister's memory lasts a month," but there was no reply for a long time. The brother became anxious. He asked the messenger. Only then did he find out that his sister just glanced at it and threw it back. "Wait, something's not right. She used to be very clingy, but she wasn't favored by the family. Now that she received a letter, shouldn't I excitedly ask if this is really a letter from my brother? My brother was worried my sister would cling to him afterward. But how come it's different now? I must have made a mistake." Father, alerted by the noise, doesn't seem very happy. My brother makes excuses to get out of it, but he still can't help but ask his father, "Have you received any news from my sister?" But the words weren't finished. When he saw his father glaring at him, why bring up such an unappetizing topic during dinner? His father is quite strange. The lilies on the table represent his constant remembrance of his deceased wife. So sentimental and devoted. Yet he cannot accept his living daughter. In his eyes, the wife had a difficult labor because of the daughter. So since the daughter was born, he has refused to have meals with her. Gradually, Charlize stopped coming to the restaurant. Now she has completely disappeared. This is for the best. Out of sight, out of mind. On the other side, Charlize is unaware of what has happened. At this moment, she is carefully getting ready. Because he needs to meet Dylan's mother. He remembers that Dylan only smiles like a child when he mentions his mother. Therefore, he needs to win over Dylan's wife. The Imperial Consort is a crucial link. After tidying up neatly, they arrived at the 7th Imperial Consort's palace. The woman before them is Dylan's mother, the 7th Imperial Consort. She is a princess from the Shine Kingdom. Frail but still alluring. Dylan, usually so reserved, is surprisingly talkative in front of his mother. She, his mother who can no longer go out, is thinking about what's happening outside. At this time, the 7th princess called for Charlize. Although she is a princess, the 7th princess is humble, and her attitude toward Charlize is very gentle. She even reached out to touch her. Those hands were thin and frail, but unlike her cold father, they were warm. Charlize felt heavy-hearted. Although it was their first meeting, the imminent death of her mother was hard to bear. She was very sad. No one can stop the changing of the seasons. Soon, the 7 empresses will suffer greatly. The only thing that can save him is Shilu grass. But only the emperor possesses Shilu grass. It's not something that can be easily obtained. Suddenly, he has a brilliant idea. The empire's 10-year meeting will hold a martial arts competition. As long as one becomes a sage, the emperor will grant him any wish. If he participates and wins, he'll ask for the Shilu grass as a reward. Dylan is also a grateful person, which will surely help in taming him. But Charlize had new worries as soon as she returned. She can't participate in a competition as a woman. Dylan would recognize her. Just as I was about to cut my hair off directly, I saw a little elf peek out from the side, staring blankly at Charlize. Then I saw them gather around, chanting a spell. In the next moment, Charlize transformed, becoming a tamed prince. He willingly dressed as a woman, only to obtain the elixir that eliminates pain. There are tens of thousands of participants in the swordsmanship tournament, and he is unafraid. Because he was once framed by the royal family, he became a demon sword for 400 years. An event of this level is just a test of skills. To hide his strength, he deliberately slows down his pace, only ranked 85th. After passing the preliminary round, I looked up at the stands, and found that the 9th prince wasn't there. Charlize wasn't surprised either. It must have been Dylan who did it. After all, I belong to Dylan. And the 9th prince once spoke to me without a word. This crossed Dylan's line. According to Dylan's harsh scolding, the 9th prince won't have it easy even without being beaten. Her thoughts were pulled back by the host's announcement. Charlize stood frozen in place, because her opponent turned out to be her own elder brother. Charlize's feelings were complicated. Although she had been treated coldly by the family since childhood, she didn't even want to see him during meals. But when the opponent is Big Brother, he still wants to destroy him on the spot. The battle is imminent. Charlize doesn't dodge or weave, because the best way to shatter someone's spirit is with contempt. Charlize sees through all of Big Brother's moves. Big Brother starts questioning his life choices. He honed his skills for 10 years, but he didn't hit a single one. Instead, he got his armor cut by the opponent. The boos from the crowd told him that no matter the outcome, he would never again attend the swordsmanship tournament that gathered little potatoes from all over. Many vendors seized the opportunity to make money. Zali's also came to browse around, but it was right here that he saw Dylan's figure. As if sensing something, the two locked eyes from a distance. Charlize felt a bit guilty, but thinking about her disguise as a man, he probably wouldn't recognize her. Dylan didn't pursue it any further. He turned and came to the announcement board. The final match is posted here. Guessing the champion correctly will make you rich. Looking at Liz on the board, Dylan's lips curled into a smile. A bet of 100 million gold coins on Liz's victory. Although he didn't know how she did it, he did recognize Charlize, disguised as a man. Charlize's mind completely blanked out, because her opponent this time was actually her fiancé from her past life. Her fiancé from her past life had searched for her for 5 years, although she didn't know why. But she couldn't afford to be sentimental now. She had to win. Then she would offer the Zaluko to Dylan. Amidst the cheers of the crowd, Charlize emerged victorious. As the victor, he will present his request to the emperor. Is it a companion, wealth, or a pardon? But Charlize only approached the king. They used the sound they both heard to state their request. Though the emperor was incredulous, he agreed and promised to send someone to help him. Before leaving, he hoped Zalius would become his personal guard. This was a great opportunity for promotion and wealth. But Zalius refused. He wouldn't protect himself, constantly thinking about removing it. He just wanted to quietly subdue his son, and then crush him with his own hands. But Charlize's abilities were too outstanding. Since he couldn't use her, he had no choice but to eliminate her. But the emperor didn't expect that he would never find Charlize again. And Charlize had just left. The fiancé came looking for me. Charlize, long time no see. You're still alive. Charlize was startled. He clearly only got to know me 2 years later. With a face of 15 years old, but has lived for over 400 years. Reborn. He thought no one would recognize him. He just wanted to take revenge in peace. Tame a prince and then disturb the emperor. But unexpectedly, the man in front of him said, Charizard, you're still alive. He was stunned. The man was his future fiancé, but they wouldn't meet until 2 years later. At this time, they didn't know each other. Actually, the man was a little panicked. Starting 2 years ago, he discovered his body was shrinking. His surroundings were familiar yet strange. The furniture seemed a little old. He knew his mother would call him at this moment. The book he had lost reappeared. The crown princess had just been born. The child's name is just like the one I encountered. I dreamt that the servant was accidentally hit. It seems that this has come true. What on earth is happening? Am I being haunted by a demon? But why is Clarice different from the one I met? In my memory, he was clearly reclusive. But now he is good at socializing. He has always been submissive. But now he is neither humble nor arrogant. Charlize must know some secret. That's why he found her. Charlize, weren't you missing? The woman felt a stir in her heart. After being forged into a sword, the man indeed searched for her for 5 years. But why does he remember things from his past life? Charlize pretended to be angry. She scolded the man for talking nonsense. At that moment, all she wanted was to get away from him. At least she didn't want to involve him, because he was the only one who had been good to her in her past life. Tahu didn't press further. He bent down to apologize. Then I watched Charlize leave. Charlize had just returned to the banquet. Everyone cast unusual glances at her. They were curious about how the family's wife became the prince's teacher. Dylan also directed his gaze at her. He couldn't help but feel a bit puzzled. What was Charlize's purpose in dressing as a man to compete? What wish did she make after winning? Now everyone is whispering about him, but he shows no sign of guilt. This suggests he's no ordinary person. What are his intentions in approaching me? It's truly unfathomable. Back home, Zalus drops his pretense. He finally has time to clear his thoughts. How could Kahul remember me? Could he also be a time traveler? But now is not the time to consider these things. He must deal with the upcoming challenge. The Western Empress is about to strike. The Western route herbs are about to come into play. He believes that after this incident, Dylan will surely be devoted to him. At this moment, urgent shouts echoed through the palace. Dylan hurriedly walked out of the bedroom. It's bad. The 7th princess is having an episode. Dylan's footsteps quickly faded away, but Cherise did not move. He had to let Dylan see the 7th princess in pain. Then he would definitely thank himself. At that time, he would certainly be grateful. To win the prince's heart, you must first win over the princess. Find a miracle elixir first, then wait for the princess to fall ill. At that moment, present the elixir. It can relieve her suffering, even if her life is beyond saving. It will allow her to find someone to entrust the prince to. So Charlize will receive a crucial mission. Teacher, I entrust my son to you. Charlize felt immense guilt. The 7th princess is a gentle person. She's the last barrier preventing Dylan from falling into darkness. But she hesitates to act, because she doesn't want to save him like she did in her past life. Dylan desperately searches for the elixir. He couldn't make it in time even until the empress passed away. Dylan suffered for a lifetime because of this. This directly led to his dark transformation into a tyrant. In this lifetime, Charlize used elixirs to turn the tide, just enough to ensure she couldn't save the empress's life. Dylan would still fall into darkness. But she also became Dylan's only redemption. The plan was proceeding smoothly. The 7th imperial consort has ultimately passed away, just like in the previous life. For several days, no one came to pay their respects. After all, the royal factions have been vying for power for years. Who would dare to pay their respects to the imperial consort? That would be opposing the 2nd imperial consort. Only one person quietly walked towards the funeral. It was the 5th prince of the royal family, D. Starlight burst from Lewin's eyes. Thinking carefully, he is only 14 years old. Drifting in the sea, he might panic and lose his way. He hopes a raft will appear, and the 5th prince before him is that raft. At Dylan's most helpless moment, he broke the cold atmosphere of the memorial. In his past life, the 5th prince won the power struggle. This is inextricably linked to his actions today. Rain began to fall at that moment. Charlize felt particularly heavy-hearted. She looked up unintentionally, and found Dylan looking at her quietly. There was a hint of conflict in his eyes. Then he reached out and offered her the 7th imperial consort's last book. Charlize knows that what's written above must be to act discreetly, and that one must survive at all costs. This led to Dylan becoming the behind-the-scenes ruler of the royal family in the last life. But now the content has actually changed. Perhaps the 7th royal consort in this life truly hasn't suffered, so their considerations aren't as cautious. Or maybe Dylan now has Charlize as a captive by his side. The current content is to pursue your ambitions. Live freely in my place. What is freedom? Living freely. Now, the drifting Dylan needs someone to decide the direction of his future. He feels that person is Charlize. What do you want me to do? Teacher Charlize carefully puts away the suicide note. Then he squatted down, looking up at Dylan. Please be my king. I am willing to be your first knight. Following you, Dylan, without any hesitation. According to the ritual, he needed to place his hand on Charlize's head and swear. But he knelt down on one knee. He took Charlize's hand, and kissed her deeply. Please be mine. You're all I have left. Dylan is like a blank canvas, waiting for Charlize to paint him. As the royal tutor, I don't teach the prince about ruling. Instead, he was taught to resent the royal family, to treat people according to their noble status, to solve problems with force. But Dylan never questioned it, because what the teacher said was right. One day, Charlize looked at the prince before her. I can't believe what he just said. Teacher, what do you want? At this moment, Dylan entrusts his fate to Zaylas. It's time to color Dylan's blank canvas. The prelude to revenge has begun. I hope you will crush everything under your feet, rule the empire, and then destroy it. Zaylas didn't just want him to become a tyrant, but also wanted him to destroy his own empire. Faced with such an immoral request, Dylan's answer was, as you wish. Zaylas never expected things to go so smoothly. He thought Dylan, with his deep scheming, would be extremely difficult to subdue, but he didn't expect Dylan to be so obedient. And in Dylan's eyes, when he lost his mother, who was his only companion, he fell into confusion about the future. To pretend to move past his sorrow, he changed into a blue outfit to meet Chalice. Yet he silently wore black to follow his mother. His disguise had never fooled Chalice. He remembered how he stood firm against the ninth prince for his reputation. He also recalled how he disguised himself as a man to fight against formidable foes, only to obtain the elixir to save his mother. Looking at Charlize, who is asleep in front of him, he reaches out to remove the petals from her face, but hesitates and pulls back at the last moment. At this moment, 14-year-old Dylan experiences his first flutter of emotion. I really want to grow up quickly. If I become an adult, no matter what wish you make, I can make it happen for you. Love is truly wonderful. It always provides some goals for the lost. It encourages them to strive wholeheartedly. 4 years later, Dylan emerged victorious in the succession struggle. He was officially crowned as the crown prince, yet with power in his hands, his face showed no emotion at all, only coldly dealing with the congratulations coming from all directions. But when hearing Charlize's praise, he couldn't contain his joy. At this moment, his eyes reached out to gently touch Charlize's face with a determined gaze. Memories returned to that afternoon 4 years ago. On that day, Charlize was actually not asleep, but was fully aware of everything that happened. The boy who wanted to help him remove the petals seems to have truly grown up. Has my relationship with Dylan progressed? I finally found where my heart belonged, but I was pushed to someone else by the person I liked. Just now, Zaylas received a visitor. She's a scheming woman, first time being the Grandmaster. Zaylas gave a special gift. It's a snapdragon and a columbine. They represent greed and desire, and that the best times have already passed. TYSH Cherise sensed the warning from the other party. After all, their thoughts were written all over their face. This clearly tells him and the prince that the best times have already passed. Don't be greedy. Leave quickly. It's no wonder the other party feels this way. 3 years ago, he went to the Seven Princesses' homeland to study. He wanted to take advantage of Dylan's deep respect for his mother. He racked his brains to create commonalities between himself and the Seven Princess, so that they could both win Dylan's favor and seize the position of crown princess. And she is the only woman by Dylan's side. There are rumors that she is very close to Dylan. It's hard not to see herself as a rival. Charlize wasn't angry. She simply pushed the orchid tea, representing the noblewoman, forward. With a smile, she asked if the other wanted to be the crown princess. Lamia was in shock. 1,000 words condensed into a single character. Soon, Dylan received Charlize's suggestion. Lamia is the best candidate to become the crown princess. I hope you two can get married. And he recounted Lamia's history, but didn't notice Dylan's expression becoming increasingly sinister. Just before leaving, Dylan grabbed his hand and made a cut in his palm. Charlize froze. He suddenly remembered the similar actions he'd once done to attract Dylan's attention. The same actions. Dylan was trying to capture Charlize's heart, but Charlize knew they should keep their distance now, so she pulled her hand away. Dylan experienced a fleeting moment of pain, but he remained extremely attentive to her. I still washed his feet. His attitude was sincere. Charlize couldn't refuse, but she also wanted to keep some distance. After all, Dylan was going to marry Lamia, but he didn't expect Lamia to be kneeling on the ground crying, waiting for him. He kept shouting loudly that he wasn't worthy of being the crown princess. Said he already has someone he loves. That expression was filled with terror. Remembering when we first met, Lamia's eyes were full of ambition. Now looking at him begging. Charlize could easily guess that this was Dylan's doing, but she couldn't understand what his goal was. Could it be that he wants to break free from her control? And Dylan seemed as if nothing had happened. His expression remained gentle, but after a long while, he suddenly called Charlize. Teacher, can you stay by my side all the time? Before Charlize could come to her senses, Dylan took her hand and kissed her deeply. As a reward, I will rise in rebellion during the winter and seize the throne to dedicate the world to you. The one who is destined to rule the world speaks such words with his head down. At this moment, Charlize understood. There's no need to resort to any tricks, whether it's to rule or to destroy. No one could have imagined. He was shocked that his rebellious student harbored such feelings towards him, his teacher. Though it was only a dream, it was Dylan's dream. He truly longed to possess his teacher. As a youth, he was sensitive and intelligent. Even if no one recognized his talent, he still masterminded everything. Gradually, he grew tired of achieving everything. I'm also tired of dealing with these idiots. Until Charlize appeared. He's not a celebrity. I don't know his purpose in approaching me, but he seems to understand everything about me. He always knows how to perfectly tease and pluck at my heartstrings. Slowly, I was moved by his unique personal charm. The psychological defenses were completely breached. From that moment on, it no longer mattered who he was. Dylan was willing to obey him unconditionally, even to give up everything for him. But Charlize actually made him marry another woman a few days ago. So he made that woman pay the price. It's not that Dylan had any deep hatred for the woman. He simply hopes that no one intervenes between him and Charlize. For that, he is willing to do anything. Whether it means destroying an empire, or even getting rid of his own father. As long as Charlize is there, he is willing to be a tyrant. On the day of Dylan's coronation ball, Dylan comes to play with Charlize. As Charlize just entered the venue, Dylan was called away by the emperor. Watching the direction he left, Charlize couldn't help but smile. For some reason these past few days, Dylan has been avoiding him, and always inexplicably blushing. This kid wouldn't be hiding something he can't face me about, would he? While Charlize was lost in thought, a man walked towards her. It was her fiancé Kahu from her past life. It seemed he wanted to invite her to dance. Although she wanted to dance the first dance with Dylan, according to the rules, she couldn't refuse the first person who invited her. Kahu looked at her with deep affection, but Charlize felt a chill and glanced up with a horrified expression. Look at Dylan, he's so angry he can't stand it. He hurriedly ended the nuclear weapons talk. Who would have thought, just as he stopped, he was roughly interrupted at his waist. Charlize, I want to talk to you. Charlize was stunned. Hearing that tone, it seems to be a show of force to everyone. When he got outside, he wanted to lose his temper, but when he looked at the woman's face, he turned into a little puppy. Teacher, I was wrong. He didn't know what was wrong with him. After seeing that scene, he felt as if he was filled with jealousy and possessiveness, feeling inexplicably blush, even afraid to look the teacher in the eye, hastily leaving to rest well. Little did he know, the woman he loved was about to face suffering. His sister disappeared. 4 years later, she sent a severance letter to their father. His older brother went to confront her, but was refused entry by the servant. He forcefully threw off the guards. He discovered him exchanging couplets with the crown prince. He doesn't know anything about swordsmanship, but he saw the fierce offensive. Even the crown prince couldn't last 2 moves under him, even if he were as stupid as a pig. He recognized his sister's talent. To be the crown prince's teacher would be a waste of his talent. I originally came to accuse him. What right does he have to request separation from the family, from childhood to Everything he ate, used, and wore, even the servants who served him. Wasn't it all provided by my father and me? But seeing my younger sister now, my older brother only now realizes what his whole family has done. Not only did he see his sister as a thorn in his side since childhood, but he also looked down on her for being a girl. He wouldn't let her practice swordsmanship, and even destroyed her future with his own hands. If we had paid more attention to him, perhaps he could have reached great heights. He wanted to apologize, but he saw his sister smiling. He is not the same as before. Back then, his smile was very forced, but now his smile is very genuine. Yeah, what face do I have to talk to him? You have to know that he, who could have been bullied by servants, is now a noble grand tutor. Eldest brother went to find father. I couldn't help but ask him if he cares about Charlize. Even a little bit, he wouldn't become like this. But before he could finish speaking, he noticed his father's dark expression. That's how people are. Excessive guilt can turn into extreme anger. He quickly stood up and rushed over to slap his eldest son. Don't be so self-righteous. Didn't you also ignore him? What right do you have to blame me? That's just how my father is. He blamed Charlize for his wife's difficult childbirth. He blamed it all on Charlize's fault. So he never gave Charlize a good look. At dinner, he would order. The servant placed a bowl of lilies on the seat to commemorate the late wife. But as long as Charlize is at the dining table, father will not come to dinner. As a father, he is a standard. Whatever he is like, the children will follow suit. Second brother is a typical example of this. When he was young, he begged our mother for a sister. At that time, he was thinking that if he had a sister, he would definitely protect her well. Mom even praised him for being a good boy. Later, he really did tell stories to his sister. At that time, she liked him the most. But he often noticed the cold eyes of his father and older brother. So he pushed her away. Even when his sister scraped her knee, he ignored it. When his sister lunged at him again, he harshly pushed her away. How could he not know that his sister would be upset? But that's what his father and brother did. He acted this way to fit in. He also chose not to be hated. He became the abuser. But now it's too late to regret. He mentioned to his brother that in a few days it would be his sister's birthday. If he could give her a birthday gift, she would definitely be very happy. Expensive gifts are too easy to buy. Instead, it's like sincerity. Then let's send him flowers. Black roses suit him well. The two brothers hit it off. But they didn't realize their actions nearly cost their sister her life. At home, she was bullied by the servant. Yet the family turned a blind eye. Until the sister became the empress. The regretful brothers want to seek forgiveness. They hold black roses. Without a word, they shove them into their sister's arms. They thought they could reconcile as a family. But unexpectedly, the sister spat out a mouthful of blood. Are you trying to kill me? How ironic. As a family, I didn't know my sister was allergic to black roses. The two thugs panicked. Don't shout. And don't touch me. This is enough. I've already submitted my application for candidacy. But why won't this family leave me alone? The only person he can rely on now. There was probably only Dylan. He called out to Dylan softly. Before losing consciousness, he saw the man running towards him. Ty fainted. The people present were in an uproar. The two losers still wanted to say something, but were silenced by a glance from Dylan. Pollen allergies occur only in a very small number of people. In severe cases, it can even lead to a miscarriage. He must do everything he can to save the teacher now. He needs to place the teacher in his own chamber. He discovers that the teacher's magic is merging with the poison. The only way to save him now is to supply him with new magic. This will be an extremely difficult process. But the teacher chose me to protect him, even if it's as difficult as ascending to heaven. I will give everything. And the two Zago brothers only learned from their mother then that Charlize's magic and the Black Rose are completely incompatible. The reason they didn't say anything was because their father forbade them from saying so. During Charlize's childhood allergy incident, he ordered his mother not to mention this to anyone, simply because the person who killed his mother didn't deserve to complain. Charlize had that dream again. In the dream, he was forged into a sword by the Emperor, used as a tool, paving the way, one life after another. For 400 years, he's been surrounded by this deep sense of guilt. A gentle voice shattered the darkness. I waited to wake up. He opened his eyes. He felt much more comfortable. Today's weather is beautiful. What pleased him even more was the young man beside him. He had been there all along. He had been in a deep sleep for 3 days and 3 nights, and the man had watched over him for 3 days. I believe he was right, but he also knew in his heart. Dylan didn't need verbal encouragement. He was preparing a grand gift for him. Your Highness, I would like to request a leave of absence for half a month to go to the Rain Mountain Range. It is a remote place. Many monsters inhabit it. However, it is the territory of Duke Kamen, who holds military power. Because Dylan didn't marry the crown princess, he lacked the support of powerful in-laws, so he wanted to rebel. He definitely needed the Duke of Kaning's support. I thought Dylan would question it, but he readily agreed. To him, the teacher is always right. When Charlize appeared in one lie, Kaning personally came out to greet her. He really couldn't understand what the prince's right-hand man was doing here, running all the way here, and even taking the initiative to play a few games with. Whether it was roulette or poker, or even the roulette machine, Kaning was completely defeated. Charlize said she was lucky, but only the strategist beside her noticed that the woman before them had extraordinary wisdom. Kaning did not believe that such a woman came here just for fun. Please get to the point. Charlize was the same. I came to see you to make a bet. There are rumors that Duke Kainin is looking for a family heirloom, but there are many monsters in the mountains. Ordinary people can't get in at all. I want to bet with you. Let's bet on whether I can help you get it. But as a price, the loser must serve the other unconditionally for life. He just turned 18, but he slaughtered the entire mountain range. The formidable SG Magic House was like chopping vegetables in his hands. But when the Duke thought Charlize would never return, it was in a hurry to report. Charlize returned with the family heirloom. The Duke was momentarily speechless. That was the only relic left by his late wife. His gratitude was beyond words. The Duke kneels on one knee. He presents the accessories with both hands. Charlize on the stage resembles a goddess of war. She has conquered the powerful lords. In the presence of everyone, the Duke swears to serve Charlize for generations. Charlize has finally received the oath of allegiance. If Dylan receives this, he will definitely be very happy. I really want to see him soon. But he didn't expect that Dylan had prepared a surprise for him as well. Inside the carefully decorated palace, Dylan holds a ribbon, looking bashful. He hears Charlize calling. The man smiles like a flower. It turns out today is Charlize's birthday. The man specially organized a surprise party for him. Charlize stands there in shock. This day is also the anniversary of his mother's death. Whenever this day arrives, his father's anger also comes along. He tells himself he is not allowed to feel anything but sadness today. But now it's different. Everything in the palace is prepared for him. Even the crown prince, Dylan, personally pours him foot bath water. The man kneeling on one knee has no complaints. He simply says with a face full of happiness, "Thank you for coming to this world." Isn't Charlize the same? If he could, he really wants to say thank you for pulling me out of the abyss. Actually, Dylan always knew. The teacher's wish was to start a rebellion. That is, to answer Dylan's real father. But Dylan never asked about his purpose. Everything went as he wished. To tie up that damned emperor. Let him kneel before Zaylas. As long as I can always be enveloped by the teacher's brilliance, I am willing to be influenced by the teacher. Rebellion is a road with no turning back. If we fail, there's only a dead end. So if anyone dares to obstruct the teacher's path, be prepared to face my punishment. After paying respects to his late empress, Dylan asks if he can call him by his name, because once Dylan becomes emperor, no one will be able to address him by his name. For them, regardless of the success or failure of the rebellion, this is Charlize's last chance. Dylan's rebellion begins. Two hearts are burning hot in the autumn wind. The boy's rosy face seems to be the last barrier against his impulses. Charlize sees it all, but her heart lies. She feels no affection for the boy before her. He is merely a tool for her revenge. Unbeknownst to her, from this moment on, Charlize can never escape from his grasp. My daughter is plotting a coup. It's driving me crazy. That little thing is going to get herself killed. It's ridiculous. It's clearly he's the one who hates his daughter the most. He's also the one who most wants her dead. And yet, he's the one who can't bear to lose her now. He can't die. What am I going to do without him? Then, charging towards Charlize with the entire family. Charlize is ready for battle. No one can stop him from seeking revenge. But his father spoke first. The Ronin family is willing to help the Grand Master. But Charlize doesn't need their help. What he needs to face now is the 1,000 monsters in front of him. This is the Emperor's trump card, specifically designed to deal with them. Charlize is prepared to face it alone. The others immediately fell into disarray. It's akin to sending her to her death. After all, it takes a dozen people to defeat a single monster. And Charlize is just casually observing. The S-rank monster over there disintegrated in an instant. Retreat is not in my plan. I'll handle the monsters. You. Stop the Emperor's reinforcements. The best way to bolster morale is through a display of overwhelming power. This single strike ignited the soldiers' fighting spirit. Dylan, cutting a swathe through the enemy, has reached the underground vault. It holds the incriminating evidence of past emperors. One particularly special book is called the Kyra Experiment Project. It details how to forge a living person into a sword with self-awareness. He remembered that Charlize had mentioned this during her lecture. Her expression was quite subtle. Could there be a connection? He opened a list of experimenters. At the very end, there was actually the teacher's name. Did Father Emperor already take action against the teacher? So this was the teacher's goal for revenge against the Emperor. But that was his own father, after all. And at this moment, the guards reported that the Emperor was trapped in a cave. Dylan needed to handle it personally. And as Charlize dealt with the last mother, good news from all fronts came one after another. Now, they only need to wait for Dylan to capture the Emperor personally. He had waited for this moment for so long. 400 years. Not a single day passed that he didn't think about revenge. Now, he finally gets to see the Emperor kneel. His feelings have never been so complex. Perhaps it's overwhelming excitement. Or perhaps it's the calm after releasing years of suppressed weariness. His heart is as still as an ancient well. But 3 hours have passed. Why hasn't Dylan brought the Emperor yet? He felt a strong sense of unease. He rushed into the palace engulfed in flames. He saw the Imperial family lying on the ground. No way. Could Dylan have escaped my control? On the palace roof, Dylan stood alone. His expression was unclear. And beneath him lies the oblivious Emperor. Master, you finally arrived. He's a madman. To take revenge on the Emperor. He schemed to get close to the prince. He lurked by his side for 4 years, ultimately taming him into his own lamb. But unexpectedly, the prince is even crazier than he is. He originally planned to expose the Emperor's crimes to the public, and execute him with his own hands. Only in this way could he resolve his 400-year-old hatred. But Dylan didn't think so. In the back mountain, he confronted the Emperor. After careful reflection, he understood his teacher's true intentions in approaching him. It's simply about taking revenge on the Emperor myself. But if I really do as he wishes, then my reason for living would disappear, wouldn't it? Dylan didn't understand before. It was my teacher who taught me that. You must fight for what you love. So even though Dylan knew the teacher didn't love him, he still wanted the teacher to live. Even if I resent myself, I'm willing to do it. He wanted to kill the Emperor with his own hands before Xalia's mind, but the raised sword suddenly stopped. Compared to killing him directly, he thought of a better way. He dragged his father to the palace, and fed him fragments of isolite. Just like what the Emperor once did to Charlize, he would watch his body slowly turn into steel. During this time, no matter what, he would not die, until he becomes a sword with consciousness, carrying eternal vitality, suffering the torment of immortality. Teacher, am I doing great? This is the most perfect gift I could give you. Don't you think you should compliment me? Complimenting Charlize has now become just a matter of strength. Dylan has gone mad. He just wants to escape now. But why escape? Dylan perfectly destroyed the royal for himself. Isn't that exactly what he wanted? You did very well. Dylan successfully boarded through the uprising. Aftermath and reconstruction are proceeding in an orderly manner. But Charlize is feeling troubled, just going through emotion. He walked over to steal the carafe. He slumped down. He suddenly found Dylan to be quite terrifying. That once pristine white paper is now painted pitch black. It's all his doing. Who else can I blame? It has to end. I have to meet Dylan myself. And then I'll run away. When Dylan received Charlize's request for a meeting, I also have some updates on Charlize. Charlize was just talking to Kahu. It's that Kahu again. Dylan had heard that Kahu discussed engagement with the teacher. Is he a rival? But Dylan doesn't think he has any chance of losing. So why does he feel a bit nervous? The sound of footsteps is approaching. Your Majesty, the Emperor is the son of the Charlize Empire. After this meeting, he must escape. He is wearing a splendid gown, preparing to see the Emperor he personally supported one last time. For him, the man is merely a tool for his revenge, as pure as a blank sheet of paper. It's now been painted pitch black by him. It was to get him to help me take revenge. The previous vows of eternal love, or perhaps his treatment of men. Every detail was just an act he was putting on. But Dylan disobeyed his orders. He cruelly tortured his own father. He realized Dylan might be slipping from his control, so he is going to escape. Before leaving, he tested Dylan. Just like the current truth or dare game. Charlize asked him, Your Majesty, do you have someone you love? Dylan was silent for a long time. In the end, he timidly replied with a soft yes. From a long time ago. I fell in love with that person. He has protected me for a long time. As Charlie knows, there is only one person who has accompanied Dylan for a long time. That is himself. There was no joy. His feelings were even more chaotic. All that remained was the rustling of the leaves. After a long while, Dylan broke the silence. Teacher, what about you? Do you have someone you love? For some reason, when the first round of questions came up, Charlize suddenly remembered Kahu, her fiancé from her past life. After she disappeared in her past life, he went crazy. He searched for himself for 5 years. For Charlize, he has a special feeling for Karu, but that is gratitude, and nothing more. He naturally answered no. After thinking, he asked His Majesty, so who is the person you love? Dylan's heart jolted. He knew he couldn't say it. He had a premonition. Once I say the words, I love you, the teacher would surely abandon him. I lost, but that moment of hesitation was noticed by Charlize. Those trembling hands and the strong composure. This strengthened Charlize's resolve. Perhaps she could use this to control him, and then destroy this empire. Just how much did Dylan love her? Judging by the new room assigned to her, her position was extremely important. After all, the lilac room was incredibly significant. It was the Emperor's room. If the Imperial City were a person, then this room would be its heart. During swordsmanship class, Charlize changed his training method. He coated his training sword with a deadly poison. He wanted to have a life-or-death sparring match with Dylan. But Dylan knew. This was Charlize testing him. If he doesn't love her, he will try his best. But he really can't bring himself to hurt the woman he loves even a little. In a moment of mental blockage, the sharp sword is already at his throat. Things went just as Charlize expected. He really could take advantage of Dylan's feelings. After all, love will eventually become mundane. The revenge plot is paramount, but love will ultimately become commonplace. Romance, however, will last until death. How their relationship develops, no one can say for sure. His rival and the woman he loves went out together. He panicked, those two acting together. They're bound to become closer. I've heard for a long time that they have engagement. Now the teacher has suggested staying at Kahu's house. What should we do about this? At that time, the teacher was on mission. When Kahu offered assistance, he shouldn't have agreed. He fought hard to ascend the throne, not to just hand it over to someone else. Dylan felt like he was going crazy. The canvas in front of him unintentionally depicted a warm scene of two people. It turned out that subconsciously, this was what he was most worried about. Charlize knew Dylan would get jealous. That's good. Only by making him feel a sense of crisis could she achieve her goal of manipulating him. As for Kahu's attitude towards him, he decided to test it out. On a starry night, it's the perfect time to share secrets. He found Kahu. At that time, we were planning a rebellion. Why did you choose to side with Dylan? To side with Dylan. It's not like that. It's actually a long story. His memory seems to be in chaos. For example, he finds his body has shrunk. He anticipated the butler getting hit. He knew the name of the crown princess. But Gaeli's is different. In his memories, a dead friend was saved by him. As his fiancée, he has clearly been missing for 5 years. Yet he has been teaching the prince all along. Everything is changing around him. So he got close to him. Different from the impression I had. Now he is arrogant and overbearing, decisive and ruthless. It allows one to feel an exquisite beauty in the midst of death. But after the calm, one can discover that within his cold heart lies a different kind of tenderness. However, he is clearly adept with everyone. Yet he maintains a distance only from Kahu. He remains undeterred. In these years of pursuing Zali's, a strange feeling welled up in my heart. The night was pitch black. Kahu's eyes shone like jewels. The gaze directed at Zaliet's was filled with inexplicable emotion. Actually, rather than saying I chose Dylan, it's more accurate to say I've always chosen you. Zaliet's didn't know how to respond. Kahu was the only person who was ever kind to me in my past life. He doesn't want Kahu involved in this life's events. But what's certain now is, Kahu also time traveled. But he wasn't affected by the Ashrite shard. So how did he return? Could it all be fate? Mission accomplished. Karis has just returned to the palace. Dylan eagerly came out to greet her. Seeing the woman in clothes he'd never seen before, he realized they were a gift from Kahu. He fought back the urge to rip them off. Smiling, he asked, how was it these past few days? Kahu and I worked together seamlessly. He even treated me to a warm welcome at his home. Hearing this, Dylan is even more effective. I've decided to throw a ball for you. The main guests will be you and Kahu. Charlize is amazing. Doesn't he care at all about me and Kahu? But in the next moment, teacher, do you like Duke Kahu? Charlize knows this is a test. Yes, your majesty. I really like him. Dylan verbally expressed congratulations, but gently lifted Charlize's hand. At this moment, Charlize only felt the heat continuously emanating from what should have been the cool autumn air. He didn't realize how much trouble his actions caused Kahu. After his beloved woman returned from her rival, she completely changed her previous attitude, wearing my rival's clothes to see him, not to mention, even saying frankly, that I really like him. But unexpectedly, he said with a smile that he wanted to hold a ball for them. Charlize froze. He didn't seem to mind at all. But why was there a strange heat mixed in with the cool autumn breeze? On the day Dylan held the ball, Charlize was dressed up like a bride, but the main character is not Dylan. It's Kahu and Charlize. But unexpectedly, Kahu was taken away by a mysterious person as soon as he entered. Dylan hurried over at that moment. Teacher, I have come to reclaim the first dance that was taken from me. Charlize remembered. At the previous dance, he neglected Dylan, and danced the first dance with Kahu. So was this all part of his plan? Teacher, please don't look at Kahu anymore. I hope today your eyes are only on me. The man's gentleness has shaken his mind. It seems to be swaying at this moment. Then let it be as you wish. The two on the stage are so well matched, your majesty. Their dance is truly a delight to behold. At this moment, they are the stars of the ball. While Kahu is a trivial presence, he watches the figures of the two, suddenly recalling how his trusted tailor of over a decade suddenly refused to make his outfit. Now he looks at the familiar craftsmanship on the majesty. He probably understood the reason. The two men's gazes met. The circling movements became bolder. Looking closely, Dylan's eyes held undisguised triumph. He stole my imperial tutor. And Dylan lingered afterward. His fingertips still seemed to retain the teacher's warmth, making him reluctant to leave. A voice brought his thoughts back. It was Kahu walking up quickly. Your majesty, I hope to marry the imperial teacher. This was the first confrontation between rivals. Dylan had a dark expression throughout. Although he said he respected the teacher's opinion, his palms were already covered in veins. As expected, your majesty likes the imperial teacher. The person doesn't really want to marry Zaliz. They just want to test Dylan's attitude. However, in the next second, the man's tone turned cold. A servant should do their own duties, not do something foolish like testing their master. They saw that cold gaze. Exactly like Zaliz. And the stubborn Kahu will ultimately touch Dylan's bottom line again and again in the future. She is the youngest daughter in the family, but has never experienced the love of her family. Her mother died during childbirth, and she became the sinner of the family. The servants bully her, and her brother distances himself from her. Her father resents her. She feels sad and alone, but she can't cry. She can only smile hard, so that dad won't be angry. The little flower, unattended, also blooms alone. Now she has knelt to become the imperial teacher. At the celebration banquet hosted by the emperor for her, she met a subordinate knight. With just one glance, she saw the hesitation in the other person. She reached out to lift her blushing face. Whatever the problem is, I can help you solve it. It turned out that what troubled her subordinate were the children rescued during the last encirclement. Now they have become orphans, homeless. Those nobles treat them like garbage. It is the subordinates who take the initiative to take care of them. Is it enough just to find a place for the children to stay? He snapped his fingers. A shadow appeared out of nowhere. Immediately summoned the nobles for a meeting. In the meeting room, the nobles sat upright. He sat in the middle. Instruct him to build an orphanage immediately. The subordinates didn't expect that the usually proud nobles now all seemed like gentle lambs. Is this the power of the imperial master? In fact, these nobles are not foolish. They can see the subtle relationship between his majesty and the imperial family. No one dares to seek trouble. And in Charlize's heart, these children are like my younger self, drifting like leaves in the wind. Because I've been caught in the rain, I always want to hold an umbrella for others. The day the orphanage was repaired, Charlize and Dylan were both there. A winter with temperatures of -30 degrees. Yet the children had never felt so warm. A child walks up to the two of them, showing a gap-toothed smile. Brother, sister. Are you lovers? Dylan shyly freezes, but after a brief moment, reaches out to give the child a candy. The little matchmaker really knows how to bring people together. Of course, they should be rewarded properly. Charlize watched in shock, as Dylan was happy for the first time because of someone else's words. Teacher, we will always be together. He understood Dylan's feelings. He had accompanied him for 6 years, although he had been acting with him to take revenge on the royal family. If it was Dylan, he still didn't want him to get hurt. I still have feelings for him. The New Year's bell rang. I wish time could stay here forever. My daughter became the imperial teacher. The threshold of our home has been flattened. The whole family was dumbfounded. These guests don't know that Charisse has already signed the renunciation letter. She has long been estranged from the family. The whole family is troubled. Why did we treat her that way back then? Why did we constantly deny her worth? But she did end up causing her mother's death. If it weren't for giving birth to her, her mother wouldn't have died in childbirth. She wouldn't come to take revenge, right? Maybe we should just kneel when she comes. There might still be a way to salvage things. When Charlize raised an army to rebel, she probably sent the disownment application out of fear of failure. She didn't want to implicate the family, right? But after coming to her senses, they realized that Charlize simply didn't want to acknowledge them as relatives. After all, when she was very young, they told him, no matter how hard you try, it's not ours. It's better to apologize proactively. But they remembered the last time they sent flowers almost got Charlize killed. They thought it would be better to gather some information first. The big brother found Kahu, unexpectedly, before he could say a word. The other party asked how they managed to raise Charlize so well. The older brother felt deeply ashamed, because no one ever taught his sister systematically. They only told her the basic reasons. When she was young, his sister spent all her time alone in her room. That's all he remembers. Kahu looked incredulous. Are you really Charlize's family? The elder brother returned home in a daze. He stumbled into his wife's arms. Looking at his wife in front of him, he suddenly thought of something. Did you ever hate him when you were giving birth? After all, you almost died in childbirth because of him. The child almost harmed you. Don't you hate him? The elder brother longs for his wife to say the word hate. That way, it would be justified for their family to hate the younger sister. But his wife seems to have lost her soul. After a long while, she slapped him. She simply cannot understand why her husband, as a married man, would say such things. Carrying the baby for 10 months, she can clearly feel the life of the child. How could she be blamed for almost dying in childbirth? Jago was in a daze. On the day his mother gave birth to his sister, he clearly heard his mother tearfully sacrifice her own life from outside the door. As a noble, she received a higher education, but did not understand that a mother's love surpasses life itself. On the other side, Charlize was completely unaware. He was being well taken care of by the emperor now. The love and approval he had longed for his whole life, he never received. Those cliched obsessions were burned away when he was reborn. Unexpectedly, approaching Dylan with a heart full of revenge, he found his broken self mended by him. His love for Dylan, he never dared to admit, nor accept. Perhaps he should be a little bolder. It was he who, watching the man's figure, asked, Your Majesty, if possible, do you want to possess me entirely? He fell in love with his own teacher. To make his teacher happy, he overthrew his own father, and ascended the throne himself, giving his teacher a large house. They return his title, yet they do not know how deeply he loves. The teacher only uses him as a tool for revenge. Not only did they deliberately stay overnight at the rival's house, but they also expressed their affection in front of him. Then, unexpectedly, they looked at his figure and asked, Your Majesty, if possible, would you like to possess me alone? He was momentarily lost in thought. You should know that just looking into the teacher's eyes made him unable to help but daydream. He had countless fantasies about sinking into a scene with the teacher. Yet, when it came to actually wanting to touch, he retreated countless times. For Dylan, as long as Charlize could stay by his side, it was his greatest honor. Becoming an emperor was never his goal. He just understands that the teacher hates this world. So to get the teacher's attention, after ascending the throne, he devoted all his efforts to reforming the economy and training the military. He intends to be ready to conquer this land. If he destroys this ugly world, he could live with Charlize. The teacher should be able to understand his intentions, right? He waited calmly for the teacher's response, but was already feeling anxious inside. Charlize listened to his plan, and was instantly overjoyed. At that moment, he blushed. The teacher's admiration was like a spark igniting a fire within him. At that moment, everything was worth it. He calmed his heart, finally taking the step that was too afraid to take. Teacher, I really like you. He eagerly awaited Charlize's response. Unexpectedly, Charlize remained silent for a long time. Summer, I like you too. He understood that the teacher was avoiding him. The teacher's affection is the opposite of dislike. It represents the friendship between friends. He once thought he could accept any answer from the teacher, but hearing it in person, his heart still ached unavoidably. He understood that the teacher always had his own secrets. He didn't want to know what they were, because no matter what, he would stand by his side. He didn't understand what the word like represented. He didn't understand it before. As a child, he lived like a zombie, until Charlize appeared. It was as if he pulled himself out from deep beneath a glacier. He understood his own pain. He painstakingly healed his own wounds. So for her, he strived to ascend the throne. He remembered asking himself, Your Majesty, if you would, do you want to monopolize me? Monopolizing might mean liking someone, but compared to monopolizing, I'd rather respect you. Thinking about it carefully, perhaps it's because I love you. Dylan's gentleness is as beautiful as his face, with scorching heat, melting the entire winter. She is the Duke's daughter, yet she's bullied by the servants daily. As a child, she loved a fruit called Perlin, but those servants would always eat her share in front of her. The young lady was bullied, yet no one cared, because her father tacitly approved of these actions. He had never been loved. On this road called life, he journeyed alone as a lonely traveler. He vowed revenge on the world, starting by controlling the royal family. Unexpectedly, driven by revenge, he became the emperor's teacher, only to have the emperor mend his broken self. Teacher, I love you. That loving authority melted Charlize's heart in the snowy winter. He was dazed. For 6 years, Dylan had expressed his love before. Each time, he had brushed it off, but this time, it still strongly touched his heart. Dylan didn't ask for a reply. That night, he took a shower. Once, he thought he could manipulate Dylan by using the fact that Dylan liked him, but when faced with Dylan's confession, he was still a bit at a loss. But no matter what, he would not give up on revenge. He should still keep some distance from Dylan. But Dylan's love was as fierce as a storm. He sent someone to deliver a portrait. The person depicted there is Charlize, symbolized in the highest honor of the royal portrait. Remember last time, the person Dylan gifted was his mother. Now the roles are reversed with Charlize. Even the maidservant beside her can feel the intense love. During the day, he's dealing with suitors' letters. But Dylan walks in swaggeringly, looking at the praises in the letters. He couldn't help but furrow his brow. He called out to the maid who was about to leave. He shouted loudly at Charlie, Show me. Who dares to pursue the woman the emperor desires? The maids were dumbfounded. Your Majesty, are you openly expressing your jealousy? At this moment, Dylan smiled slightly. He wanted everyone to know. He will pursue Charlize. In piano class, he prepared a plate of pu'er tea for Charlize. This was Charlize's favorite fruit when she was a child, but she could never have it. How did he know that? The way Dylan personally fed it to her made him forget those painful childhood memories. Then Dylan played a song for him. Legend says the song was created to seduce women. It's a medium to express one's emotions. When the emotions in the song reached their peak, Charlize understood that Dylan was sincere. There was someone who had never given up, who had always deeply loved him. News of the Emperor's pursuit of the imperial tutor spread throughout the nation. Everyone thought it was a perfect match. Only Kaho was in a bad mood. Why was he so unhappy? He was even knocked off his sword by someone, despite being a knight. Could it be that he had fallen for Charlize? She had been confessed to by the Emperor's student. The whole country was abuzz. Everyone thought it was a perfect match. Only Kahu was flustered. He was even knocked off his feet during practice. He found Charlize, and in a low voice pleaded, both professionally and personally, "I hope you won't get too close to His Majesty." Kahu felt extremely frustrated. He was originally Charlize's fiancé, reborn into this era with his memories intact. Didn't expect that someone else would take Charlize's heart. Charlize just glanced at him. Naturally, she knew that he was using a formula to confess, but she didn't intend to listen to him. Not knowing where to start, only by Dylan's side would her worries disappear. And only Dylan was the most precious person to her. Dylan prepared a special courtyard for him. This ice crystal tree was enchanted by him specifically, because everything has an end someday, but he hopes that certain things can be preserved forever. He held his hand. His shoelace, which seemed to be out of fashion, came undone. Dylan bent down. He saw the Emperor bowing down. He remembered that only Dylan had respected him from the very beginning, and only he was a spark in his life, the only green shoot in his life. Looking at his face, his hand unconsciously floated up. Then, unable to help himself, he kissed him. He returned to life for revenge. If someone is willing to accompany him, what harm is there in falling in love together? Your Majesty, I actually have those feelings for you too. At this moment, Charlize shed the disguise of the imperial teacher, and became a 20-year-old girl, a bit shy, and somewhat flirtatious. And the big oaf in front of her noticed the subtlety, and immediately invited Charlize to his room to watch the fireworks that night. Charlize knew it all too well, but did not refuse. She just stared intently at the boy in front of her. Her heart could not stop racing. When she got home, the fairy in her room asked if she needed help. After all, the first night is always filled with shame and awkwardness. But Charlize declined. She didn't want to rely on external forces to push her relationship with Dylan. He wants to experience with his most genuine self, to confirm the room of the night. Dylan doesn't seem excited. From the first moment he saw Charlize, he had a feeling that this person in front of him must belong to him. That feeling of destiny is probably what we call fate. Fleeting fireworks, our eternity, these years, no regrets. I accepted the student's confession. The moment the fireworks exploded, their eyes reflected only each other. Countless stars made of. In the clear morning light, he opens his eyes, and sees the figure of a man. Charlize, if you're not feeling well, just sleep a little longer. With him gently stroking his face, he suddenly feels a bit unreal. Now this happiness within reach. It was something he desperately longed for in his childhood home. They never gave him an ounce of love. They only pushed him further and further into the abyss. Dylan looked at him with adoration. Charlize, what is our relationship now? He froze for a moment. What kind of relationship is it? Royal etiquette forbids relationships between the imperial family and the emperor. Even the emperor isn't allowed to have a lover. He can only have concubines or an empress. He thought for a moment. We are lovers. He was challenging his own position in Dylan's heart. Unexpectedly, Dylan only leaned, and then decided to publicly announce their relationship to the entire nation. The news spread. Everyone in the country is happily gossiping. Only Kahu is feeling exceptionally troubled. Zali's once made him forget about him, but how can he forget? His heart hurts so much. He lingers in the wind, reminiscing. While I secretly let go in the wind. Later, the mountains and rivers no longer meet. Our relationship was destined to be incomplete. During the sword fighting lesson, the two were practicing, but Dylan suddenly started the car. Charlize wanted to leave to collect a package, but turning around, she saw Dylan's gentle face. His smile always broke down her defenses. He moved closer step by step. She gently tapped Dylan's face, but Dylan pursued relentlessly. His blushing face made Zayla's laugh. Today was their first date. Dylan was a dating novice. He only took Zayla's through cliched routines, but it still made Zayla's happy. But at dusk, Dylan brought him to a place. He seemed to be in a hurry. He wanted to get everything done in one day. He wanted to make more memories with Zayla's, because he always had an illusion that the woman in front of him would one day leave him. He entrusted his wishes to legend. It is said that if a couple can walk through dusk together, they can stay together with their beloved woman forever. This road leads to a place where they once built an orphanage. Dylan instantly spotted the girl on the swing. Her tooth hasn't grown in yet, and her personality is still so mischievous. She's the brother who gives out candy, causing the dean to explode on the spot. You should know that man is the emperor. Dylan still remembers the girl's question from last winter. Are you lovers? Now he can proudly answer her. We are indeed lovers. It's hard to believe that the ruthless Dylan from the past life would come here just for an affirmation. Suddenly, Charlize noticed the girl in the corner. He seems very scared. His gaze towards Dylan suggests there's a smell of blood. Charlize just approaches him, but it makes him even more afraid. And after Charlize leaves, he secretly watches from behind. Why does he have this ominous premonition? After returning to the room, Charlize notices the risk on the table. It's just a simple unboxing. In the next moment, a man appears. Charlize, please leave the emperor, or it will cost him his life. They are finally together. After 6 years of struggle, they are finally walking side by side into the future. But now Charlize realizes that her proximity would lead to Dylan's death. It turns out there are two gods in this world. One is the righteous Eshelite, and the other is the dark evil god. The Magic Tower is desperately researching the Kyra project because they are searching for the evil god. They will forge those who consume fragments of Eshelite into swords. Then they will guide the evil god to descend upon the sword. But the authority still lies with the body's owner. Then the master will transform into an evil god. From then on, the master's only goal is one. That is to destroy the Eshelite fragments, to become the only true god in the world. Charlize never expected that the reason he achieved rebirth, or perhaps his extraordinary talent, even the ability to absorb the models of monsters, was all because he himself is the evil god. But where are the Eshelite fragments? It is said that every once in a while, the largest Eshelite fragment will be born as a human. They possess undeniable talent. They are the chosen ones of humanity. Since birth, individuals with Charlize syndrome have shown talent in various fields. Isn't that Dylan? The evil god's killing intent towards Eshelite is absolutely uncontrollable. The closer they get to each other, the more difficult it is to contain the explosion. Yes, I unintentionally thought about taking action against Dylan. And Eshelite's fragment cannot compete with the evil god. What a twist of fate. Charlize has finally found happiness. After 400 years, she has found the first ray of light. But now, I must destroy it with my own hands. That night, the two nestled together. Charlize, I love you. My lord, I love you too. But no one knew the burden in Charlize's heart. He couldn't guarantee he wouldn't harm Dylan. Perhaps abandoning him would ensure everyone's safety. He is a fragment of the noble Ashlight. Perhaps I can overcome my pain even if I leave him. Before leaving, he found the imprisoned former emperor. It was because of his conspiracy that Charlize was forged into a magic sword. She was tortured for 400 years. And now he has become a prisoner. Seeing Charlize's appearance, he was taken aback. Didn't I already turn you into a sword? But how do you still look like a human? It seems that because he ingested the Ashlight fragment, he actually remembered the memories of Zerais before his rebirth. But this aligns perfectly with Zerais' intent. This way, he will regret everything he has done. Dietrich I. Your empire has fallen. The flames spread across the land. The walls have turned to ruins. All your people have turned to ashes. In the desperate wails of the former emperor, Zerais delivered the final blow. He finally got his revenge. Then the flames burned on. 400 years of pain has come to an end. On this day, he accompanied Dylan on the last leg of the journey. I'm happy that Solace can be with you. I am very happy. He had so much to say bottled up inside. But looking at Dylan, he couldn't find the words. He once dreamed of facing the future with him. He wanted to create many memories with him. He made a vow of unwavering loyalty to him. Perhaps it's impossible now. The wind is rising. Spring is coming. Once, they loved each other in the wind. Now, they must say goodbye in the wind. He actually loves him. But he is not at fault. It was his own presence that distorted the originally upright him. Otherwise, he would still be that outstanding politician in history. I hope he can forget me and live a stable life. 5 a.m. He looked back at the direction of the palace. Then he resolutely walked towards the teleportation circle to leave. The wife he chased for 6 years has run away. The man has completely gone mad. Charlize's vow in my ear seems to be tearing me apart. How could you leave me after taming me? It was he who approached me. I let myself fall into the swamp called Charlize. But now he has abandoned me. I might as well capture him and make him into a specimen. That way, everyone will know that he belongs to me. Charlize felt strange. I thought leaving Dylan would be painful, but I didn't expect to get over it so quickly. It's been 3 years since I left. Dylan hasn't sent anyone to follow me either. Maybe he's forgotten me. But Charlize underestimated Dylan. Charlize disappeared 3 years ago, and Dylan tacitly approved. He thought Charlize would come back, but the seasons kept changing. She experienced the vibrancy of spring, and also witnessed the end of winter. She always thought she would see her figure in the next season, but was always disappointed. 3 years have passed, and she still hasn't come back. Dylan's eyes have completely darkened. Within them hides an irrepressible madness. It's all because of her. Her leaving drove me mad. Only by possessing her can I be happy. I must have her. The maid has had a bad feeling lately. Since birth, she's been able to identify the color of things by their scent. For example, the scent of fresh grass appears green when it snows. The cold air appears light gray. The first time I saw Tish Charlas, she was an incredibly pure white. But now, His Majesty Dylan is an eerie black. The maid suddenly creates an illusion. That is, the Imperial Master will eventually be consumed by His Majesty. Her thoughts had not yet returned. The maid was called to face Dylan. Mary, do you want to inquire about Liz? The maid was taken aback. In the entire palace, who wouldn't want to know about the Imperial Master? Dylan's lips curled up. It's time to bring Charlize home. Charlize, your freedom is over. Just claim that a high-ranking official from the Dark Tower is here, and Charlize will definitely take the bait. Before leaving, Dylan instructed us not to be careless. We must capture him, no matter what. When the royal knights surrounded Charlize, he realized he had fallen into a trap. With his strength, he could have fought his way out. But looking at his subordinates being completely besieged, in that moment of panic, he was completely immobilized. I knew you were here. Zerais felt a sudden stir in her heart. In an instant, Dylan grabbed her. I came to find you. Zerais. From now on, you must stay by my side. She realized the man in front of her was very unfamiliar. The once shy boy had now become cold. His gentle voice was now unusually hoarse. You've changed. You never came back. Did you expect me to remain unchanged until my death? Charlize, incredulous. How can such a pure fragment of Ashley emit such a dark aura? It feels like I've been tainted. So, can I do whatever I want to you now? Just like you did to me before. He ran away from the Emperor for 3 years, but he was finally caught. The moment Dylan gripped his jaw, he felt the man was utterly unfamiliar. The gentle kindness in his eyes was replaced by coldness. His voice had become hoarse. His touch was no longer gentle. The Dylan he once loved had completely changed. But who can we blame for this? It was Charlize who approached Dylan. She tamed him, and then abandoned him. 3 years have changed a lot. Like a kind and gentle boy turning into a tyrannical ruler. But what hasn't changed is his possessiveness. He not only commands Charlize not to talk to other men, still detaining Charlize's companions to control him. They had just sent him to his residence. They arranged for knights to watch him closely. As soon as Charlize opened his mouth to argue, Dylan pushed the door and entered. He hurriedly asked where his companions were being held, but he saw Dylan's lips curl up. How could you leave me out like this? Go care about others. He slowly moved closer. Gallies, I told you, you are not allowed to talk to other men. You can't look at other men. You can only look at me. You can only listen to me speak. The Dylan of today gives a sense of suffocation. What's even worse is, as soon as he got in the carriage, he just yanked someone over. He kissed without considering others' feelings. Zerais got angry and gave him a bit of tomato juice. Teacher, your kissing style is really unique. Your Majesty, please respect me. The capital has rapidly developed over the past 3 years and looks like a scene of prosperity. But what puzzles Zerais is that every official's face is filled with fear. As soon as I entered the palace, everyone rushed over. The former personal maid was in tears, saying, Master, why have you only just returned? He brought Charlize to the Queen's palace. It has been cleaned and tidied every day for 3 years. Dylan sits here every night, waiting for Charlize's return. Charlize was taken aback. Dylan actually bestowed the Queen's palace upon him. This seems to be a violation of royal protocol. After all, he still holds the title of Imperial Teacher. Dylan has become so crazy. He noticed a jewelry box on the side. Inside were sapphire earrings, and other jewelry in the room. Were all things he once cherished. Even the small items were well preserved. At that moment, Charlize knew. Dylan was selecting the things he liked. Waiting for him. He waited for a year, 2 years, 3 years. He welcomed springs and summers. He endured autumns and winter. But he didn't wait for his true love. Instead, he got a battered body and a broken heart. Love really is a powerful emotion. Even with the decisive rationality of polyester, it will still be devoured by him. But Cherai still cannot stay by his side, because he doesn't want her to get hurt. You are the noble Ashlit fragment, and I am the infamous god of evil. Perhaps if we switched identities, We might also be a good match. My wife has been missing for 3 years. If I knew it was their last conversation. He won't leave if he says nothing. Before leaving, he asked himself if you have any memories of rebirth. Why doesn't he remember? Gallitz was a victim of the family in his previous life. When I was arranged to get engaged to myself, he has no expression, just accepted happily. In his life, there was no right to choose. Fate drifts like a dandelion in the wind, inherently kind yet tasting the bitterness of life. Yet, like a small grass that stands tall despite the storm's destruction. From that moment on, I couldn't help but feel sorry for him, wanting to take care of him, but he disappeared. Just like now. He vanished for 3 years. From then on, Cahiel's life lost its luster. He turned down all the blind dates arranged by his family. After understanding the meaning of love, he realized how rude it was to marry someone he didn't like. But Charlize, where are you? If you don't come back soon, not only will you be lost at sea, but the whole country will also be in deep trouble. All of this is the result of your Majesty's actions. Because of Charlie's previous decision, Dylan has launched a continuous internal and external war. The continent is in turmoil, and Dylan suddenly became very strange. He seemed emotionally unstable because of Charlize's departure. One day he asked himself if the bird he raised flew away for freedom. Should he blame himself for not breaking its wings? That day he smiled mysteriously. The next day, he brought Charlize back. After that, he took control. He really did break its wings. And Dylan found his companion. The scared blonde thought Dylan misunderstood his relationship with Charlize. He hurriedly explained that he was just Charlize's subordinate, but this inadvertently ignited Dylan's anger. The name Zalize is only for me to call. Your courage is indeed commendable. The blonde was frightened and shivered. He hurriedly said he had even sent flowers when you were dating. Dylan was rendered utterly speechless. After calming down for a while, he opened his mouth to ask why you and Zalis were opposing the magic tower. The blonde was startled. He hurriedly explained it was because Zalis was powerful. Dylan's lips curled up slightly. Wasn't it because my dear teacher was once a subject of the Kyra project? It wasn't hard for Dylan to deduce this. After all, Chalice harbored intense hatred for the Emperor. But the Emperor has always supported the magic tower in its research on Kyra. Before Charlize escaped, she destroyed all the information about Kyra. However, Dylan had already memorized everything. That list of Kyra's experiments clearly recorded the teacher's name. I've also heard that after escaping, the teacher launched a campaign against the magic tower personnel. The teacher joined the organization of the Yellow-Haired. The only reason can be revenge against the magic tower. Seeing that the Yellow-Haired still gritted his teeth, Dylan raised a hand and handed over a document. This lists the experiments performed on your sister. It clearly records the torture she suffered. Seeing Huang Mao tremble, Dylan pressed his advantage. Your sister's body and her attackers are in my hands. Tell me everything you know. Is this the gentle majesty that has been rumored? If evil gods exist, then they might look just like this. After Dylan learned about the blonde's information, he was also somewhat puzzled. In his memory, Charlize had never left the mansion since she was little. If he was also a subject of the Kyra project, then he must have been given ashlet fragments since infancy. But this is impossible. Could the teacher be a time traveler? The man embraced him. Wait, I can't be with him. He wanted to calm down, but the man drew closer. The whispers in his ear continued to attack his inner defenses. He looked into his eyes, but the heart is greedy. This is what you asked for. Then he took the initiative to kiss. Feel the skin of a man. Warm and soft, although he is the embodiment of the fragments. But after all, it's human. Dylan seems to want to incorporate Charlize into. For the past 3 years, he has had a feeling that it is a pain that cannot be quenched no matter how much water he drinks. It feels as if he is in hell. He tightly embraces Zalis, afraid he will disappear. When he opens his eyes in the morning, he can still feel his warmth by the pillow. His heart is in turmoil, clearly wanting to keep a distance, yet uncontrollably letting him take the lead. Is it because of the heart of the evil god that she is attracted to the fragments of Aishalit? No, this feeling hasn't faded over the 3 years. In the end, her desire for Dylan may just be because of love, thinking that after 3 years she would forget her. But unexpectedly, she couldn't let go at all. The man hugged her from behind. Teacher, abandon me. What exactly is the reason? Chalice didn't answer you positively. What I want now is my kiss, or my answer. Distance and estrangement seem to appear again at this time. But children make choices. Dylan wants both, but Galice cannot. Do not tell His Majesty. I have taken over from the Emperor. Do not force me to act against the wicked. Then you might as well kill me. There's nothing wrong with falling under your sword, saying that killing me is sick. But for the ashlet fragments and the evil gods, it is indeed the most profound declaration. In this moment, Charlize has a strange illusion that they seem to have returned to the past. So the Emperor has cast aside state affairs, having not dealt with them for many days. At night, Dylan took him to a place that is a magical creation of the sea. Once, they loved each other in the Crystal Spire. Now, they meet again on the Dream Beach. It seems like a perfect ending. But for Zalize, it was a sight to behold, and pain in the heart. The magic of this scene could not be achieved without the power of the magic tower. Their powers are growing stronger. The ultimate goal is to eliminate the ashlet fragments. That is Dylan. He must destroy the magic tower as soon as possible. After thinking about it, he pulled Dylan's neck. Your Majesty, I want to go outside. Dylan thought he should take a breath. But on the way back, Charlize met an acquaintance. It turned out to be his father. Haven't seen you for a long time. Master Emperor. Hello, Duke Ronan. But Charlize doesn't want to have any kids with his father, who is inferior to his dog. But after turning around, my father called me. He kneeled on the ground with his head down. I want to help you. I'm willing to do anything for you. Charlize looked at him coldly. Why do you only say you want to help me now? Because I regret what I have done to you very much. Dad finally regretted it. He kneels in front of his daughter. Master Emperor, I'm willing to do anything for you. Charlize is very puzzled. You have always treated me like a beast. Why do you want to help me now? It turns out that my daughter became the imperial teacher after the uprising was successful. There are endless guests at home. But he wasn't happy at all. Because my daughter has long been broken with her. Why not apologize earlier? But his daughter suddenly ran away. He panicked. He heard that his daughter was defying the royal family. In this way, not only would he be on opposing sides with his daughter, but his daughter might even be executed. It's all my fault. If I had given him more love, he wouldn't have gone down this path. From then on, he was never the same. Brothers come to visit. But he saw this doggy look. If his dead wife saw it, what would he think? Look at his guilty expression. Brothers know. He's not sorry for you. Just shame to my wife. Being a duke. Take control of the power. But I drink to relieve my sorrows all day. Brother, I can't stand it. Leave a note and leave. Here are the partners who can meet the deceased in a dream. Let his dead wife advise him. He fell asleep according to the method at night. There is a clear sun in the dream. The lovers who have been separated for 23 years finally met. He was a little confused when he looked at his dead wife. Just like when we were in love. He is still so beautiful. And I am no longer the boy I used to be. Looking back on the past, his life is almost complete. Being a duke. Falling in love with the dream lover. The eldest son is the leader of the royal knights. The second son is also the chief knight. But my wife asked about Charlize's current situation. He thought Charlize would be doing well. Their family will be harmonious and happy. Charlize will be the most favored little daughter. Looking at the wife's appearance, he only knew. My wife never died of dysfunction. Resentful Charlize. His sorrow is beyond words. My wife was a little stunned. The next second I heard the man's apology. I've never held that child. Never called his name. Never eat with him at the same table. Never asked for him. The teacher even blamed him for your death. Accuse him of not coming to this world. From the beginning, my purpose is to ruin him. Destroy his wife. Lost your God in an instant, but she still forced herself to laugh. But the dream is a little turbulent. You still love to joke. Look at him. I understood instantly. The man didn't lie. Tears flowed silently. Then the emotions collapsed completely. The child he left behind desperately was treated like this. What else do men want to say? But my wife is gone. He should actually understand. My wife's death has nothing to do with Charlize. I'm just venting my anger on Charlize. But he always regrets it afterwards. Charlize looked at her father kneeling on the ground, but her heart was completely untroubled. He kept saying he wanted to help her, but he couldn't help himself at all. However, since there was an extra piece on the board, it should be used well. Afterwards, Charlize found herself foreboding. After simple dinner, he announced that he would escape from the palace 3 days later, and this time he needs some help. He wrote a letter. Let the elves who have followed him since childhood to send him. The yellow hair around me was completely panicked, because he recognized it. Those are not elves, but serving Ashrit's inferiority. But why did they serve me, the evil god? His elves for 9 years. It turned out to be the ancient god who served Ashlit. No wonder they stayed by his side. It turns out they are following the evil god. This moment, he remembered. Sealed memories surged into his mind like a raging tide. It was the day he was forged into a demonic sword, he recalled. The higher-ups in the demonic tower were celebrating wildly, but no one cared about his feelings. It was on that day that these elves suddenly appeared, worshipping the star god. The evil god was complete. He was declared no longer his original self. That overwhelming hatred. He can still clearly feel it to this day. There are still many plans yet to be recovered. If he slowly pieces together all the plans, then he would become a true malevolent god. At that time, his murderous intent towards Dylan will be uncontrollable. For Dylan's safety, he must be as early as possible. He pointed at one of the elves. Let him cover himself. Leave the palace. Then he came to the monster forest, but just arrived here. He felt a malicious aura. It's the people from the magic tower who are collecting fragments. Before the magician came, he opened his mouth and was happily sent away by Charlize. Dylan on the other side is still thinking hard. The teacher's ideas always make him one step forward, recalling his initial approach to himself. It happened to be a teacher before my mother passed away. Know yourself so much. I am still asking for a visit to the swordsmanship conference. And give it to yourself on the day my mother is sick. I was too young then to understand his own. I didn't investigate deeply, but thinking about it now, it still makes one suspicious. Could he have known in advance that my mother would die? Thinking carefully, he hated the late emperor to the bone. Now that the late emperor is dead, he is intent on destroying the magic tower. Why is this? He burned away information about the evil god's plan before leaving. Recalling those information, young people can't bear the fragmented magic deed. Kokolis entered the palace at the age of 15. If you have had an experiment, definitely not alive today. And when he was young, he met his teacher. Why do you think his temperament is like a cold magic sword? The only possibility is that he has experienced the future. And he always feels. That is, the palace cannot lock Charlize at all. He must meet him in person. On the other side, Charlize is still killing the forest building. At this time, the person agreed in the letter finally appeared. This time, it would be impossible to escape without their help. They're not a gangster. Their special voices can communicate with monsters. It's a group of monsters, the nation of companions, and the man in the lead. As soon as we met, we were facing each other. He can't figure it out. Why does an outsider know about the national divine objects? Charlize knew that this would happen. The easiest way to deal with it is to conquer him by force. The man beat him for a while. He didn't know when the woman was receiving the police, and at this moment, he felt Zaylet's strong murderous intent. A sword energy passes by itself. The magician who wanted to attack in an instant. The man was completely shocked. Promise if Zaylet's provides clues about the divine objects in the clan. Assist him to escape from the palace. And the palace on the other side. Dylan stands in front of Zaylet's store. Somewhat hesitated. The man is ready to catch a job, but unexpectedly entered the room. A woman in a dress. It seems to be waiting for him. Dylan was stunned for a moment, looking into Zaylei's eyes. When the brain is still blank, Charlize has touched his face. Your Majesty, I've been waiting for you in the room. Dylan knew he was lying. This woman never tells the truth. Just like last time running away, his ideas are always elusive. Dylan must find a way to make him express his heart. But just a moment when he thought, Charlize has already helped him on the head. He's getting closer and closer. Can I kiss you, Your Majesty? Dylan knows very well. I've never got his heart. He has always released his instincts to himself. Or a desire. Chalitz reveals Dylan's emotions. I didn't seem to ask for your consent. So can you meet my requirements? But before Dylan could reply to Liz, Dylan seems to be unable to handle state affairs tomorrow. While Charles involved Dylan, he was also involved in it. Another letter was sent to his duke's father. He really couldn't figure out what this sage master thought. In his letter, he actually asked whether he could attack the emperor twice. A scumbag was stunned. Are your Majesty and Charlie's lovers? Being a duke, the consequences of the family taking action against the emperor are unimaginable. But what about my sister's request? No matter how much the price it is, you have to bear it. After all, this is what they owe him. After Charlize left this time, they may never see each other again. Discussed for a long time, my father decided to go and get involved in the army alone, but the other person diverted his Majesty's attention. A few hours before departure, Charlize quietly waited for the two elves to fly out. They looked terrified. That man is dangerous. Charlize knew they were talking about Dylan. After all, the elves and he are the opposite of Dylan. But it doesn't matter anymore. He's ready to run away. If the companions are becoming stumbling block, then I'll do them. But what should I do if I confront Dylan? Being with him is because I cannot control my rationality and possessiveness. Maybe I won't meet someone as moved as him in the future. That wise boy once. Still a tyrant when he grows up. Maybe I'll really see you. If I weren't the evil god Dylan, not Ashrit's fragments. You can have that love and throbbing smoothly. Okay, you should be returned to the crowd. This time it's really a bad road. Time for action. Charlize has joined his companions. Get out of this door. There is no turning back. But now it's time to leave. Finally realize that my wife is a reborn. Why do you know yourself so much? Why do you know that my mother is seriously ill and offers spiritual medicine at a critical moment? I also understand why I felt like a cold sword when I saw Charlize for the first time. It turns out that he has experienced the future and suffered the cruel magic sword experiment. To prove this, he called the same suspicious Kahu. Kahu is reluctant, because he loves his Majesty's woman. In a sense, they are each other's rivals. See you every time. They all have physical discomfort. Dylan is very interesting. Why did you feel scared when you first met me? At that time, I was obviously just a crown prince, and never show up. At that time, your expression seemed to be very scared. It's also very surprising. So in the future you have experienced. Who is the crown prince? The Tower Fox lost his god. Unexpectedly he knew. But he didn't wait for his reaction. What is the relationship between Xaylet's and Kyla's magic sword? The Tower Fox is still pretending to be. But I can't fool Dylan. Just think about it. Who can master military affairs at the age of 15? Extremely powerful. Also proficient in various knowledge. Kahu can always handle all kinds of official duties perfectly. Actually they are all the same. All experienced. Time goes back. Kahu almost revealed. And then outside shouted that the Luonan family had rebelled. Dylan doesn't look surprised. He had expected Chalais to run away. Do you still have to run away in the end? The game between cats and mice is over. The guards in the palace were restrained by Ronan's forces. The Libra of Empire's right seems to be tilting. But as the emperor, Dylan rode a horse and chased him in the distance. He took the throne for Chalais. How could you care about rebellion? But this time, I will never let Charlize go. Charlize left the palace for several miles in the blink of an eye. The Rafine tribe has been here to respond long ago. Charlize is determined to leave. As for my father's family, it's just bait. It's time to abandon it after use. But the plan was a bit unexpected. Dylan is not going to do something. And why do you feel surprised? Do you hope that the plan will fail from the bottom of your heart? And just now, the sound of horse hooves appeared behind him. The familiar figure was getting closer and closer in Charlize's eyes. Dylan caught up. But he is outnumbered and weak. Can he keep Charlize? Living is always for a moment. And for Dylan, that moment is the moment of marrying Charlize. So to seize that moment, he is willing to give everything. Charlize has already crossed the border. If he wants to leave, Dylan can't stop him. Talk to me. Charlize won't take up too much of your time. He's determined to leave. But listening to Dylan's pleas, his heart is wavering again. Actually, I knew it all along. You are from the future. Becoming my teacher was to help me become emperor. But why do you have to stay away from me? Is it because you are the demon sword Kyra? Everyone was shocked. The leader, whose goal was to destroy the evil god, is actually the evil god himself. Dylan already knows about Charlize and Kavrit's future. In that future, Dylan did not become the emperor, and was not even the crown prince. This can only indicate that everything happening now is deliberately orchestrated by Charlize. You hate the royal family, and want to destroy the magic tower. It's not hard to deduce the original future. You have been persecuted by the royal family and the magic tower in your short life. Charlize is not surprised. He understood everything. Because he is Dylan, a gifted fragment of Ashlight. Charlize hated the royals. All the royals were killed. But Dylan, as the leader of the royal family, survived. Because the boy was his light. But why does Charlize have to leave? Why can't we just love each other properly? Dylan knows it's because of the danger. But Charlize, even if you kill me, it's fine. I don't care if you're an evil god. I don't care if you will ruin me, no matter what. I love you all. At this moment, time freezes 400 years after Zaylei's weathered life. I finally deeply feel that I am still human. If you want to take everything from me, then take my life as well. Zaylei doesn't understand why the love in his words is so noble. A love that stakes everything. His heart was enveloped in a warm and reassuring guidance. His usually rational self was completely defeated. Looking at the gentle young man before him, he couldn't help but ask for him. Is this worth it? After all, from the moment he was just a pawn. But he was willing to be used, abandoning glory and status. Even willing to be a docile livestock. Please continue to use me. If you leave me hungry, I will stay hungry. Or if you want me to live like livestock, I will also obey. Seeing that Charlize did not speak, Dylan became even more anxious. His tone changed to a plea. Because you are an evil god. Are you afraid I'll die? Charlize didn't deny it. But no matter who you are the person I love most. I won't die. I will try my best to find a way. I will not try to seize your organization again. I will also strongly support you, and I will help you destroy the Dark Tower. After saying that, he seemed to have made a decision. In front of Charlize, he revealed the magical oath, a vow to win back a woman's heart. The Dog Emperor made a magical oath. If I can't keep you, can I keep my life? I promise I won't harm you or your organization. Huan Mao was dumbfounded. This vow means that if Dylan doesn't keep the agreement just now, his heart will stop immediately. They just launched a rebellion a moment ago, so-called Charlize. Can he abandon the rights of the nation, or even his life? Dylan casually waved his hand, and hundreds of knights emerged from the shadows, all laying down their weapons and kneeling. Even the leader of the empire lowered his noble head, but Zaylais remained unmoved. His mind could no longer think. It was only after being reminded by the blonde that he came to his senses. He blushed. If you don't keep your vow, I'll kill you. The words were very cold, but they still moved Dylan deeply. This was the result he desired the most, a longing like Charlize's silhouette. His expression subtly changed. This was all part of his plan. He couldn't suppress his possessiveness toward Charlize, no matter what. Although over 100 knights were hidden in the shadows. If I could soften his heart by humbling myself, that would be the optimal solution. Master, you are mine. I can't escape. After returning to the Imperial City, Huan Mao and his group couldn't help but be curious. That Dylan had already prepared a mansion for them. Could it be that he had foreseen their return? But is it true that Charlize, the captain, is an evil god? Charlize overheard this. Realizing he couldn't hide it any longer, he strode towards the group, admitting that he is the evil god. This matter is somewhat unfortunate for the blonde guy. The evil god should be a sword. How could it possibly take human form? However, a surge of malevolent energy rushed in. Charlize's eyes revealed a chilling killing intent. The blonde guy found it hard to believe, but dared not speak again. 3 days later, Charlize finally decided to meet Dylan. As soon as they met, Dylan happily stood up. He seemed to return to his former purity. He shouted, I miss you so much. Charlize was somewhat puzzled. They had only met a short time ago, but in Dylan's eyes, the beautiful connection between them without any barriers was still in the autumn 3 years ago. It was as if they had returned to that moment. Dylan was still that shy boy, who couldn't even dare to make eye contact. But Zara knew that Dylan would still seek the answer. Why did you leave me? Zaylais thought for a long time. Because I want to protect you. For the first time, he expressed his feelings without reservation. I am afraid you will die. Because I love you so much. He confessed everything from his past life. How he was isolated by his family. How he struggled to fight back. And how I was betrayed. After saying all this, Charlize didn't dare look up. She feared he wouldn't feel sorry for her. After a long while, Dylan's tone was calm. But the aura around him was like a vortex of hatred. Even Charlize was shocked. Finally confessing everything to her lover. Before his rebirth, he was not a significant figure. He was referred to as a fool by his family. He wanted to defy fate and gain recognition, but fell victim to the royal conspiracy. He was cruelly cast into the evil god's experiment. His soul was trapped within a cursed sword. He endured endless pain and loneliness. He became a tool for great evil. Having said all this, he didn't even dare to look up, because he didn't know if the person across from him could empathize. Dylan's tone remained extremely calm, but his usually calm face was now as ferocious as a demon from hell. He seemed to be figuring out a way to reach the future. To personally punish these heartless scum. No one should have to endure such torment, especially his most beloved teacher. So he understood why women tamed him and then abandoned him. It turned out that he had been his own enemy from the very beginning. Perhaps as a member of a wicked royal lineage, dying by his hand wouldn't be so bad. He remembered that Charlize always said life is incomplete. People always need an ending to conclude their lives. If his ending were to be killed by the one he loved, maybe it's the most perfect story. Although it's a bit twisted, it doesn't matter. I can die at any time to fulfill his wish. Charlize knew he misunderstood. Leaving him was never about wanting to kill him. He just hoped Dylan wouldn't know about the evil god, and could live safely. He just wanted to save him, so he wouldn't be pushed towards destruction by the evil god Kyra. Perhaps their story is like most people's, friendly and talkative with strangers, but never communicating with the lovers they should be connecting with. Maybe such a pair would inevitably drift apart. Love shouldn't be one person's stubbornness. That kite should belong to the sky. It will still fly away. Perhaps some people still haven't found that genuine love until now, but I continue to pursue the obsession in my heart. For my entire life, I must find that place to anchor my soul. Charlize looked at Dylan. For the first time, she expressed her feelings. You are an incredibly precious light. Because I love you, I cannot lose you. I am willing to bear the soil of longing, in exchange for your lifelong peace. Dylan heard these words. He straightened his body. But I cannot accept this. I do not accept your abandonment of me. I can't bear to see you carry such a heavy burden to save me from danger. Even if you are the embodiment of evil in this world, you are still the one I love the most. Charlize is very confused. She clearly abandoned him twice. But Dylan didn't blame her. Why isn't he angry? He can understand me in everything. Then I recklessly defended him. I'd be better off loudly accusing him. That way, I could release some of my guilt. It's good that it's not too late. Dylan held his hand. But teacher, why did the evil god insist on killing me? He did ask that. Because you are the real Ashley at Fragment. Dylan doesn't seem surprised. As expected, he knew it all along.